afternoon and welcome to City Club of Portland Friday Forum. City Club is where we bring civic-minded people together to make Portland and Oregon a better place for everyone to live, work, and play. I'm Karen Curvin, president of City Club. I would like to welcome members and guests alike, those of you who join us today at Sentinel Hotel, and those of you listening on OPB Radio or watching on Portland Community Media. The generous support of City Club's corporate and media partners ensures that we put on the state's best civic programs week after week. I'd like to thank our media partner, Oregon Business Magazine. Our current Friday Forum sponsors are Echo Northwest, Chevron, Girding Edlin, Morel Inc., Northwest Natural, and Schwabe, Williamson & Wyatt. We are grateful for your support and commitment to City Club's mission. Please join me in a warm round of applause for all of them. We are pleased to welcome back civic scholars from Park Rose High School. Civic Scholars is our initiative to expand opportunities for high school students to more deeply engage in Portland's civic issues, bringing civics education out of the classroom and into the community. Students, please stand if you are able. Welcome to Friday Forum. City Club is where people who love Portland work together to solve our biggest problems. Now is your chance to love Portland back. If you're already a member of City Club, help others get involved. If you join or renew between now and May 31st, you will save $25. Also, if you join today, you will be entered for tickets for a night with Pink Martini's Thomas Lauderdale. You can join after the program. Just be sure to connect with a City Club staff person, or you can join online at www.pdxcityclub.org/join. We have 3 after-hours events next week. On Wednesday, our business forum will tour the Collaborative Life Science Building at OHSU. On Thursday, our Natural Resources Forum is hosting a discussion about what it takes to have a fossil fuel-free future. And our Government Forum is hosting an event about women in Oregon politics. Next week's Friday Forum will be a conversation about the health and social impacts of racism and inequality. Do you know great organizations or individuals that are doing work to inspire civic engagement? Nominate them for City Club Civic Awards. Nominate or apply by Sunday, April 19th. There is more information on your table about the program. You can learn more about City Club events, purchase tickets, and become a member on our website, pdxcityclub.org. And as always, we will be live tweeting today's program. You can follow along and join the conversation using the hashtag ORSOTC15. After our program today, I will facilitate a question and answer period with Governor Kate Brown. Members, please come to the microphone to ask your question. For all of our audience members, please locate the index cards on the center of your tables and write your questions on them during the forum. Hold your cards up high, and City Club staff will collect them prior to the start of Q&A. And now for our program. Today, Governor Kate Brown will report on the state of the state, her vision for moving Oregon forward, restoring public confidence in state government, and helping all Oregonians to thrive. Governor Kate Brown definitely flies with her own wings. Family law attorney, women's rights activist, and astute navigator of the Capitol for more than 20 years. Kate Brown was first appointed to the legislature in 1991 and since has been elected 5 times to serve in the House, Senate, and statewide office. Selected by her Oregon Senate colleagues in 2004 as the first female majority leader, She championed increased voter participation, reform of the juvenile justice system, government ethics reform, and expansion of preventive health care for women and children. Twice elected Oregon Secretary of State, Kate Brown fundamentally improved public access to information about contributions to political campaigns and rigorously audited state agencies for financial transparency and performance. Earlier this month, she signed into law an idea she championed as Secretary of State, the new motor voter law, the most significant expansion of voter registration since Oregon women won the right to vote more than 100 years ago. She became Oregon's 38th governor in February 2015 following the resignation of John Kitzhaber. We are pleased to welcome her to City Club in her first major public address to report on the state of the state and share her vision for moving us forward together. Please join me in welcoming Governor Kate Brown.
Holy smokes. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedules and a beautiful Friday afternoon to be here with me today. Many thanks to President Kervin for that very kind introduction, to the Portland City Club and OPB for this opportunity to share with you the state of our great state. As of tomorrow morning at 10 a.m., I will have been in office for exactly 2 months. A lot has happened in 60 days, although considering the controversy I inherited, a lot needed to happen, and quickly. A fresh start for the people of Oregon was an important first step for me as your governor. So I immediately replaced several key positions and created a new one. The first senior policy advisor dedicated to ethics and public records. Thanks, Gina. 3 state and federal investigations of the former governor and first lady were already underway when I arrived on February 18th. 2 more were initiated shortly thereafter. My office is cooperating fully, which includes responding to a huge backlog of public record requests and a federal subpoena that requires legal review of more than 1 million documents. Certainly there is and will continue to be plenty of work to be done to resolve unanswered questions about the previous administration, work that will require the undivided attention of several members of my staff and no doubt the media for weeks and months to come. In the meantime, I'm taking action to ensure that nothing like this ever happens in Oregon again. I've identified 3 main areas of concern. 1, our public records law needs an overhaul, a thoughtful and informed overhaul. 2, the role and expectations of First Partner as a public official need to be clear and reflect our modern relationships. And 3, we must strengthen Oregon ethics laws to ensure transparency and accountability among public officials at all levels of government. In response to these 3 concerns, I've drafted and introduced 3 bills. 1 requires the state auditor to conduct an independent review of state agencies' processes for responding to requests for public records. Before we contemplate meaningful changes to improve our public records law, we need a current analysis of state agency practices related to cost, turnaround time, and compliance with existing laws. Information from this audit will allow public policymakers to make informed, fact-based decisions. 2 more bills strengthen the Oregon Ethics Commission and address important structural changes, such as distributing the power to appoint among the members of the commission and tightening timelines related to processing complaints. These bills also clarify the role and expectations of the first partner and increase penalties for knowingly using public elective office for personal gain. They also prohibit speaker fees for statewide office holders and for the first partner while in office. Oregonians have had cause to question their trust in state government. The steps I have proposed will foster transparency and accountability. That is the best way to demonstrate our commitment to restoring credibility in the aftermath of the recent turmoil. The legislature cannot go home until we get this done. And I'm not going to let them. But it's really important to remember that during those distressing weeks of headlines announcing investigations and resignations, the rest of the state's issues, needs, and challenges did not go away. And believe me, there's no shortage. In fact, a reporter at the Oregonian thoughtfully provided me with a to-do list published the day before I was sworn in. It covered everything from assembling a new staff to figuring out where to weigh in on all the House and the Senate bills. And although the circumstances may have been less than ideal, let me just say up front, I don't feel like I was thrown into the deep end of a pool. I dove in. And I did what I always do. I rolled up my sleeves and got to work. And in the past 60 days, in addition to addressing subpoenas and public record requests, I've done a few other things. I've signed 32 bills into law, including the new motor voter bill. This is landmark legislation that will bring ballots to literally hundreds of thousands of new Oregon voters. I appointed Jean Atkins as your Secretary of State. And I join many of you in mourning the loss of 3 great Oregonians, Brady Adams, Dave Frohmeyer, and Gretchen Kafori. Their legacy of service and leadership has changed Oregon for the better, and they will be missed. I've also declared drought emergencies in 5 Oregon counties and expect to do the same in several more. I've made public service announcements about wildfire prevention and the importance of meningitis vaccinations for the University of Oregon students. Go Ducks. I meet regularly with agency heads and with legislative leadership regarding my budget and policy priorities. My package of ethics and public records bills has been introduced with bipartisan support, and I've been able to testify at their hearings. I've also discussed these bills with 9 editorial boards from news outlets all over Oregon, and they've been very well received. I've toured workforce housing, observed unmanned aerial vehicle demonstrations, and read aloud Dr. Seuss's "Oh, the Places You'll Go" to elementary students. In my very first appearance as governor, I visited, without the media, Rosa Parks Elementary, a wonderful school in North Portland, where the students waved and shouted, "Hey, new governor," "Hi, new governor," as I walked through the halls. That is a day I will never, ever forget. On a ranch in Brothers, Oregon, I got down on my hands and knees along with Sally Jewell, the U.S. Secretary of the Interior, to eradicate juniper shrubs. Ultimately, we have both decided to keep our day jobs, which doesn't usually require the use of pruners. However, the good news for Oregonians is that we both felt extremely comfortable handling pens, and we were there to sign in a very important document, an agreement that will sustain the well-being of a remarkable bird, the Eastern Oregon sage grouse, a bird that makes its home in Eastern Oregon, as well as the people and the communities that share that home. As of today, I've visited 8 communities in Eastern, Central, and Southern Oregon and in the Mid-Willamette Valley. During those visits, in addition to meeting with the U.S. Secretary of the Interior, I've met with educators, parents and students, business leaders, tribal leaders, soldiers being deployed, older Oregonians in nursing care facilities, and even a group of exhausted firefighters who've been working since dawn to put out a fire at South Albany High School. So when people ask, "How's it going?" and they ask me this a lot, I feel like I've got a really solid answer. It's very busy. But the reason I wanted to recap these first 60 days in office is this. I have spent the past 2 months more immersed in Oregon than ever. My days entirely filled with the opportunities, dreams, challenges, and achievements of working-class Oregonians. And when I think about the state of our state, I'm thinking about you. And I ask myself, what is the state of opportunity for working families in Oregon? The opportunity to be educated for success in a complex global economy, to find good jobs in our chosen communities, to raise healthy families in safe neighborhoods, to plan for a comfortable retirement. In short, what is the state of Oregonians' opportunity to thrive? Predictably, the answer is mixed, but it's trending in ways that are positive. For one thing, the state's economy is making a comeback with just 5.4% of Oregonians unemployed. This is slightly, yes, please. I don't think I can claim credit for this statistic. It's slightly lower than the national average and the state's lowest unemployment in 8 years. Oregon's gone from having the 7th highest unemployment in the nation a little over a year ago to a 3-way tie for 20th with New York and Alabama. And this, by the way, as you all know, is a race we want to become in dead last. My priority is to ensure that this economic recovery results in meaningful opportunities for Oregonians who are working hard to make a better life for their families, that it means good family wage jobs. It's important, as our economic picture continues to brighten, that all Oregonians can thrive, no matter who they are or what part of the state they live in. What's more, our Oregon-grown businesses are key to the state's economic recovery. 70% of new jobs in this state are created when existing Oregon companies grow and expand. 70%. After years of responding to the collapse of our natural resource-based economy in the 1980s, Oregon now boasts a diverse manufacturing base and significant growth in high-tech hardware, software development, foods, and of course, athletic and outdoor gear. In other words, in this state, we make things innovative, useful, marketable, and in some cases, very delicious things. We manufacture silicon chips, with a vibrant high-tech industry anchored by Intel's largest facility in the world. And we make all-natural potato chips at the world's biggest producer, Kettle Foods. Oregon is a leader in food processing with literally tons of local berries, hazelnuts, and wheat turned into countless products by Conagra, Amy's Kitchen, Diamond Foods, and hundreds of other food processing firms. Their products are shipped worldwide. Not only is Oregon home to Columbia Sportswear, Keen, and Nike, but also Adidas America, Dakine, and Lacrosse Danner. Oregon really likes its feet, especially when they're in motion. A fast-growing aerospace and unmanned aerial vehicle, or UAV industry, is also rising up, with leaders such as Boeing and CloudCap Technologies leading the way. Let me take a moment to amplify this point. The commercial UAV industry is projected to grow fivefold in the next 5 years, bringing high-paying jobs to any region that has the necessary infrastructure. Currently, there are 3 UAV test sites here in Oregon. In March, I approved a $500,000 forgivable loan to support a UAV testing facility in Pendleton. This loan, coupled with additional support from Business Oregon, means the City of Pendleton now has the financial resources it needs to continue the development of this site. Rural Oregon is the perfect testbed to push the evolution of UAV technology into new areas like sustainable agriculture and forestry. These key opportunities are expected to be a big part of the estimated 100 family wage jobs that this site will create. When presented with a chance to seize a key moment, Oregon is poised to step forward and support community leaders working to develop a new industry in an important part of the state. As we say at Business Oregon, your lead agency for advancing Oregon business, we must grow our own. And just to be perfectly clear, this has nothing to do with Measure 91. I checked. Grow Our Own calls on us to invest in Oregon-based industries and businesses, to work to retain them and help them grow and expand. We also must foster startups and attract new companies to Oregon. In building a thriving economy that expands Oregonians for all Oregonians, we must also connect education, workforce development, housing, and transportation. As we all know, a safe and efficient transportation system is essential in getting goods to market, workers to their jobs, and creates a desirable quality of life that attracts innovative people to our state. And ultimately, when we look at our transportation system, we must be mindful of how Oregonians choose to get around. No matter how we do, whether we walk to school, drive to work, catch a train for a family visit, or bike to the gym, the travel system we needs to get us there safely. Looking ahead, however, the resources needed to operate, preserve, and make much-needed improvements are non-existent. We need to invest in passenger rail, freight rail, bicycle routes, and other transportation alternatives. As anyone in the Tri-County area can attest, congestion is a very real problem that threatens our quality of life. If you've tried to drive between Beaverton and Portland after 3 a.m. on a weekday, you are well aware that congestion is a major issue for businesses in Washington County and for its more than 500,000 residents as well. For example, I recently visited Pacific Foods in Tualatin. Current traffic configurations and congestion on the Tualatin-Sherwood Highway make it virtually impossible for their delivery trucks to pull out and head eastbound towards I-5. Transportation improvements are desperately needed to ensure that Washington County residents, workers, and products can get where they need to go efficiently and safely. These are improvements that cannot and will not be achieved without new money. I think you're watching my travel schedule. I spent time in Medford earlier this week. Over the past 5 years, Harry and David has been challenged by freight delays to PDX. During their busy season, October to December, 80 to 100 trucks per day depart the Medford headquarters, many bound for the air freight facilities at PDX. There are times, however, when they've had to divert their shipments to the port of Oakland, California, instead of the port of Portland, due to severe congestion and delays. This is unacceptable. These issues are real, and they are statewide. So this is my wake-up call. Ring! Now is the time for the Oregon legislature to step up and make these investments. Passing a transportation package is amongst my highest priorities. It's not going to be easy, but we cannot shy away from this very important work. Let your legislators know how crucial this is. Ultimately, my legislative colleagues must choose to put the needs of the economy ahead of partisanship and send me a transportation package to sign before the end of session. As I'm sure you will agree, this is critically important to Oregon's future. Transportation, education, housing. These are fundamental infrastructure supports that will help us sustain our economic recovery. And although state government doesn't create private sector jobs, it will always have an important role to play in being proactive on these fronts. For example, building affordable housing so Oregonians can live near their places of employment. As Pendleton's Jim Chaney, owner of Hill Meat Company, recently put it, employees who travel an hour each way to their jobs, that's an additional 10 hours a week that they can't spend with their families, a huge loss of family time. The recession took its toll on low-income Oregonians, especially families. Over the past 10 years, the number of homeless students in our K-12 system has doubled. Now that the economy is turning the corner, wages and public funding for services have not kept pace with Oregon's thriving housing market. Property values statewide have risen more than 5% in the past year alone. In 2014, an Oregon family needed to make the equivalent of at least $16.28 an hour, 40 hours a week, in order to afford a 2-bedroom apartment. A minimum wage worker would need to work 72 hours a week to afford that same unit. A person living on Social Security would need to find an additional $630 a month to afford it. Many Oregon communities also have a shortage of affordable housing, with vacancy rates lower than 1% in some parts of our state. There are only 20 affordable and available rental units for every 100 low-income households. In Central Oregon, homeless shelters are serving people who have jobs, but simply can't find a place to live. These needs are immediate and they're urgent. I have proposed a housing package that would add 4,000 new units of affordable housing over the next 5 years. This would be an important step forward in ensuring that all Oregonians have access to a decent and affordable place to call home. Investments in Oregon's infrastructure are important to the long-term well-being of our state, for sure. But for individuals and Oregon families, the key to prosperity is and will always be education. What is the state of opportunity for all Oregonians to access high-quality education from cradle to career? Through my work early on as a family advocate and legislator, I know there's so much more we can do as a state to make sure that every child is ready to learn when he or she starts kindergarten and reading proficiently by 3rd grade. That's why I have prioritized investments in early learning and literacy programs for Oregon's youngest learners to close opportunity gaps for students before they develop. Our public schools should not only foster academic success, but ensure that we have the stability and health of all of our students and families. And we must remove barriers to learning for students and families where languages other than English are spoken at home. I know from my experiences in Portland that as many as 70 different languages are spoken in our public schools. We should also engage the parents of these students in a manner that values their history and their language. Parents are often hungry for opportunities to connect with schools and school leadership. So much so, in fact, that Latino Network often has waiting lists for their school-based literacy program, Juntos Aprendamos. Enero Montiel, father of 5-year-old Itzel, heard about the program from his next-door neighbor. Determined to access literary support for his daughter, he came faithfully, week after week, to the Juntos Aprendamos program at Glenfair School in East Portland, even after being told the program was full. He would arrive each week holding Itzel's hand as they waited outside the portable classroom, hoping a spot would open up. Last fall, one did. He noticed that as her vocabulary and letter recognition grew, so did her confidence about entering kindergarten. He also learned helpful parenting techniques to boost his shy daughter's self-esteem. She started at kindergarten at Shaver Elementary this fall. The Montiel family is now one of the most active families in their school. Economic equity and educational equity go hand in hand. Persistent opportunity gaps and long-standing inequalities for communities of color and low-income Oregonians continue to stand in the way of prosperity. An audit I completed while I was your Secretary of State revealed that Oregon has struggled to improve both student achievement and graduation rates. The state ranks as low as 40th in student achievement, and our on-time graduation is very low when compared to other states at 69%. We need to focus on student graduation and retention, including strategies to tackle chronic absenteeism and actively re-engaging students who leave school before earning a diploma. Graduate rates are a sobering reminder of how far we need to go to ensure that the promise of opportunity for every student, especially students of color. Today, 52% of Native American, 57% of Black, and 61% of Latino students drop out of high school, as do 60% of economically disadvantaged students. This dropout rate is due in part to our inability to meet the educational needs of these diverse students. This must change. Leaving school without a high school diploma is no longer a viable economic option. Just to share with you how serious this issue is, as of 2014, 336,000 Oregonians, adult Oregonians, did not have a GED or a high school diploma. That's more than the combined populations of the cities of Salem and Eugene. Not too surprisingly, the rate of unemployment for people without a high school diploma or GED is double what it is for folks with a bachelor's degree. This issue is a personal one for me as well. My stepson dropped out of high school. We were very fortunate that we had the resources to help him get his GED, but not every family does. I'm very grateful for the Portland City Club's leadership on this issue and agree as a state that we must increase the number of Oregonians completing their GED. I look forward to working with you on this very important topic. Better still would be to find ways to close the opportunity gap and keep students from dropping out in the first place. And on that front, there's some good news. Middle school is a critical time in student development, and through a focused and collaborative effort by the state and local districts, nearly 40 middle schools are successfully closing opportunity gaps in math and reading. A great example is Walker Middle School, a Title I school in Salem. At Walker, the educators start with the premise that all of their students should be prepared to go to college, a process that starts with success in high school. Outside each classroom is a placard saying which college the teachers graduated from. Educators work in teams to tackle issues that they are having with the classroom or with particular students. Consequently, it creates a very warm, supportive learning environment and teaching environment. And the educators I met with described it as being part of a big family. I met two amazing students at Walker. Victoria told me that she wants to be President of the United States after she graduates from Harvard. And her friend Kaylin wants to be a doctor. I asked Kaylin whether she wanted to be the president's doctor. She said, "No, I want to be the Surgeon General." From a middle schooler. Not every child wants to run for president, but every student, every child should have the opportunity to achieve their dreams. For many, an important step in that pursuit is a college degree. The question is, can they afford it? The cost of college is one of the biggest barriers to closing the opportunity gap and breaking the cycle of poverty. Tiffany Dollar grew up in Portland with a mother addicted to drugs. She attended 13 different schools, 4 schools in the 3rd grade alone. She stayed with friends, and she slept on couches in order to finish high school. It's not unusual for students like Tiffany to drop out and remain in poverty. But thanks to a couple of her teachers who recognized her drive and her will to succeed, Tiffany enrolled and graduated from Portland State University. Go Vikings! Her involvement in student leadership helped her land her first job. As the first person in her family to graduate from college, Tiffany's story has a mostly happy ending, until the part where I mentioned her $60,000 in student debt. And her first job paid about $30,000 a year, which means financially, Tiffany is hanging on, but just barely. There's absolutely no question that education is the key to a better life. College graduates have greater earning power over the course of their careers and more career options. It may represent more of an investment than we've previously been willing to make, but we must address the cost of a 4-year degree from Oregon's public universities so that it's actually affordable for Oregonians, not just Californians. We also need to ensure a good return on our investment with educational programs at our high schools, community colleges, and universities that tie learning to real jobs with Oregon businesses. I'll give you a couple of great examples. At Benson High School, you can get clinical nursing experience before you graduate from high school. Now, how cool is that? Portland Community College has partnered with Vigor Industries to train students to be welders, literally right on the docks. As your governor, I am fighting for a seamless education system spanning birth to career. My budget includes more resources for higher education, including the largest investment in community colleges since I served in the legislature. It's due to the economy, not due to me. There are also additional investments in career, technical, and STEM education. These will open students in rural and underserved communities throughout the entire state. The budget also includes significant investments in high-quality teaching and learning. There are increased resources for supporting and training excellent teachers, which every student in every school in this state both needs and deserves. Because who among us has not been inspired, even transformed, at sometimes in our lives by a gifted teacher? These are incredibly important people in the lives of our children. From kindergarten to high school graduation, an Oregon child will spend nearly 13,000 hours with educators in our public schools. We must make sure that they have the tools and the resources necessary for success, including reasonable class sizes so student learning can flourish. As I mentioned, I've had the opportunity to travel the state extensively since I became your governor. I've met with a lot of people, and this much is clear about Oregonians. We love Oregon. We want to be a part of determining how decisions are made. Oregonians like to participate, and we want to be heard. And our collective decisions should reflect a variety of perspectives. This is really important to me. When it comes to making public policy, the outcomes are better when there are more diverse voices at the table. As the largest employer in the state, with over 38,000 employees, state government should set the example. Equity and inclusion for all Oregonians cannot happen if it's solely the responsibility of one or two designated staff members to address. So in my administration, we are working together to change the way we do business in state government with diverse communities throughout the entire state of Oregon. Here's another observation from my visits around the state. As inspired as I am by Oregon's rugged beauty, I am also aware that our way of life is being stalked by climate change. The evidence is compelling. Record low snowpack, the warmest winter since 1895, and 5 Oregon counties in states of drought of emergency before mid-April, and I predict more on the way. I am very concerned about drought and its nefarious companion, wildfire, not only for this upcoming summer season, but the summers yet to come. As you know, we can't talk about prosperity and economic recovery without acknowledging the crucial role that water plays in our quality of life and our livelihoods. I know this probably sounds strange, coming from the governor of the state best known for our high rainfall and our lush green landscapes, but the threats to our water supply are all too real. Addressing the possibility of water shortages has been front and center since day one. I've assembled leaders from key state agencies, the Office of Emergency Management, and our local and federal partners. We are taking steps to mitigate drought and prevent wildfire, or be ready to combat it when and if it should occur. Additionally, I'm concerned about future water shortages and the likelihood that Oregon's population will continue to grow as the livability of other areas of the country is compromised by climate change. My budget includes $56 million for statewide water resources program. This program calls for collaborative, place-based planning for water conservation and storage, and includes funding for implementing projects all over the state that result from these planning efforts. We must be good stewards and work together to find solutions that serve our needs today, as well as the needs of future Oregonians. So tomorrow is my 60th day as your governor. My sense is, as a state, we're through the hardest part of this transition. Although there is still more to be done, much more to be done, we are back on track, working together and moving forward. Ahead, there are blue skies and green lights. Conditions stable, all systems go. Let's get there together. Thank you.
Thank you, Governor Brown. And now if you have written a question on an index card, please hold it high so that City Club staff can collect it from you. We will now take questions from the floor. As always, we invite members to the microphone to ask their question. Asking questions at Friday Forum microphone is a benefit of City Club membership, and membership is open to everyone. Before asking your question, please identify yourself as a City Club member. Please ask only one question and ask your question as succinctly as possible. If I flash this card, it means please wrap up your question.
Hi, my name is Christy Liu. I'm a civics scholar from Park Rose High School, and as a high school senior preparing for college in the fall, I was wondering what are the specific steps you are going to take to make college tuition affordable for all Oregon families. Thank you.
Well, thank you. As I mentioned thanks for the question, and thanks so much for being here from Park Rose High School, and I look forward to meeting with you after the City Club today. As I mentioned in my remarks, I believe that education opens doors for Oregonians, and it's critically important in terms of our education system to remove barriers for education, and particularly higher ed. Oregon has very ambitious goals for its education system, and that means 80% of our students completing not only high school, but a 2-year degree. I'm committed to working with the legislature and make sure that it is affordable and accessible for Oregonians across the state. I look forward to working with you.
Next question, please.
Thank you for being here today, Governor Brown. I'm Christine McCants, City Club member and a doctoral student at PSU, and I'm very excited about your educational agenda. But my question today is actually about something you said near the end. You mentioned having concerns about our water security in the state now and in the future. And I know you've stated publicly that you are in favor of a deliberate process regarding the Nestle bottling plant that's being proposed. But given your concerns, do those concerns you feel outweigh the economic benefits or potential economic benefits that a Nestle bottling plant could bring to the state?
Thank you. I think you're saying Nestle. Yes, and I was anticipating a question from one of the City Club members. So in Oregon, we have a very transparent and standards-based process for our rulemaking process. We have multiple agencies, including your Department of Fish and Wildlife and your Oregon Water Resources Department, working along with the City of Cascade Locks on this process. I know many of you are having your voices be heard by posting on my Facebook page, but I would also encourage you to make your views known. That's part of the public process by going to the Oregon Water Resources Department website and having your views be heard there as well. Thank you.
Mary Sullivan, City Club member. Thank you for bringing up the issue of climate change and the water supply connection. Also thank you for signing the Clean Fuels Bill, but what is your position on cap and trade and carbon tax and approaches to dealing with carbon emissions?
Well, thank you. As you know, I passed and signed the Clean Fuels Bill into law a couple of weeks ago, and I thought it was extremely important to sign that legislation. That means reducing carbon emissions by 10% over the next handful of years. And I think it's really important that we have cleaner air. I think that's a good thing for healthy Oregonians. In terms of carbon cap and trade and some of the other issues, I know there's some legislation that the environmental community is moving through the legislature, but I haven't, in my 60 days in office, I have not spent enough time to be able to comment any further on that, and look forward to working with you to make sure that we have clean air in Oregon. I recently invested $1.5 million in making sure that we can transition out of wood stoves in areas like the Klamath Falls area. So hopefully we can continue to move forward on the West Coast as part of the climate change initiative. Thank you.
Chris Andre, City Club member. It's wonderful to have you here today at City Club, Governor Brown. We're very, very honored, of course. My question was going to be concerning Destiny, but I have an equally pressing question, and that is the issue of timber counties. We see the example of Prineville and other places where tech solutions appropriate for a first world country in 2015 have resulted in more or less stable economies in still very rough times. I wonder why timber counties are relying on a 100-year-old solution to a 2015 problem. You cannot fund schools by cutting down trees forever. And you would be in a position, I believe, to have influence on what might you be able to do to address that problem.
Here's how I would respond to your question, and I'm not sure I was able to pick up. I'm struggling a little bit with the microphone here to actually hear the question. But in terms of our timber counties throughout the state, we have a number of timber-dependent counties, and I think it's critically important that our economies grow and thrive, not just in urban Oregon, but as rural Oregon as well. And there are two areas where I think we have great opportunity in our timber counties. One is around biomass. I met with the EPA Administrator, Gina McCarthy, this week. I think we have an opportunity, both in terms of creating jobs, creating healthy forests, and making sure that we put people to work in the woods. The other area is something called cross-laminated panels, and it's a relatively new wood product. And D.R. Johnson is piloting this with the cooperation of Oregon State University and University of Oregon, the architecture school, and working together to build buildings out of cross-laminated panels. So there are two areas where I think we have great opportunity in our timber-dependent counties.
We'll now have a question from the audience. Internet access, volume, and speed has an increasing impact on businesses and livability. Conducting business via the internet is the most green form of transportation. Will your transportation bill include funds for high-capacity internet service for centers of commerce?
Wow, great question. I have been talking with staff about how we can make sure that all Oregonians have access to the internet, both in rural Oregon and in our low-income communities. I hadn't thought of tying it to the transportation package. I'm guessing that's probably too huge of a lift this legislative session, but it's something I'm very committed to.
Hi, I'm Dustin Riggs, City Club member. Do you still think the merger of Time Warner and Comcast would be beneficial or a good thing for Oregonians?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question. Could you repeat it, please?
Yeah.
Just get ready.
Do you still think the merger of Time Warner and Comcast will be beneficial for Oregonians?
I'm still not understanding the question, I'm sorry.
The merger of Time Warner and Comcast, whether you believe it's beneficial.
Oh, thank you. I'm sorry. I appreciate the question. I believe that it's when companies do good things in Oregon, like Comcast did to make sure that low-income families have access to the internet, that we applaud their good work. And I would continue to support Comcast in making sure that all Oregonians, low-income Oregonians, have access to the internet.
Ted Kay, City Club member. My question is about comprehensive tax reform in the state. It may be too early in your administration to answer this question, but your predecessors in office have given two answers to the question about when would it be best to address comprehensive tax reform. One said, times are bad, we need to wait until times are good to address it. The other said, times are good, we have to wait until times are bad to address it. Question for you is, when do you think the appropriate time would be, and what will you do in that area?
Wow, great question. That is the most intriguing version of tax reform question that I have ever heard. So just to share with you, I came on the footsteps to the Oregon legislature on the footsteps of Senator Shirley Gold. Senator Gold spent 10 to 15 years working to reform Oregon's tax system. I got appointed in '91, and one of my top priorities was to reform Oregon's revenue system. So it is a huge priority for me. I believe that we need stable and adequate revenue for our schools, for our services for vulnerable Oregonians, and for our public safety. That being said, in terms of timing, obviously for me, not right now during the legislative session, but I hope to bring business community, labor folks together after the legislative session to see how we can either tweak or work on an overhaul of Oregon's tax system. So, thank you.
We'll have another question from the audience. Governor Brown, if the state legislature sends you a bill requiring a background check on the sale of every gun in Oregon, will you sign it?
Every contract? Background check, every contract?
Requiring a background check on the sale of every gun in Oregon.
Yes, I will sign it.
Kurt Wavering, member. What's your position on raising the minimum wage?
What's my position on raising the minimum wage? I support raising the minimum wage. The question is timing, making sure it doesn't harshly impact our currently growing economic recovery, and the second is the amount. So I look forward to working with the legislature on those particulars.
We have time for one more question.
I sent mine to you, but I'm going to ask her directly. Good afternoon, Governor Brown. I'm Iris Hodge. I'm an organizer with Main Street Alliance, and I heard a lot of conversation about big business and supporting all of the big businesses in Oregon, but we represent small businesses, and I wanted to know what you were going to do to help grow small businesses in Oregon.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that question because as your Secretary of State, I developed the Office of Small Business Advocate and learned some of the challenges over the past year, the challenges facing small businesses. Small businesses are truly the lifeblood of Oregon's economy, and I think it's critically important that small businesses grow and thrive all over the state. I think there are a couple of pieces in the work we did over the last year. A number of small businesses ran into challenges with agencies in terms of licensing requirements. While the Secretary of State's office will continue to advocate, in my new role as your governor, I can make sure that those licensing requirements are shortened so then when Dave, the gentleman who wants to teach people how to drive trucks so they can get on the road for a living, instead of taking 9 months or 12 months to get that license, they can get that license in a much shorter period of time. So I think cutting red tape for small businesses is very important, and I'll look forward to working to make that happen. Thank you.
We have run out of broadcast time for further questions, and we'll have to stop for the day. As we close, please join me in offering our sincere thanks to Governor Kate Brown.